Okay, start again for modernity's sake. Okay, session number 8 in the Colour Academy. We're going to get deep into device links and hybrid profiles and curves, all settings in the XEC product. I think this session needs to be a little bit more interactive than the others without me just talking. So if you have questions, please unmute and we'll see if we can answer them there and then. So I think any questions you will have, other people will appreciate them. So let's start this off as all the others. The Colour Academy was devised as a sessions of concepts around colour, starting from the very basic graphic arts, working through to the use of our tools, and now at session 8 we're getting deep into some of the more esoteric tools which can really help you out there in the field to get customers to where they need to go. So the agenda is just called the expert session, and we're looking at device links, edits and hybrid rendering curves. All the files and test files, etc., which I'm going to use today are all going to be packaged up along with the recording, so you can all have a play and test in the future. So just to sort of set the agenda for where you need to be to understand this session, you must feel confident about making your profile in the first place in the DFE, which is session number 6. Feel confident about using Zycon Colour Control, and so we can walk straight in now and start to use the tool in a little bit more of an expert way. So we're going to come out. This is the only slide we have, so we're going to now move directly into looking at I would do if I could find anything. Okay. So we're going to be working out of the session 8 folder today. What we have is we have our CGATS file, which we've created by measuring our optimized target, and we're going to look at a few of the things with the resources which are already on the site. So first of all, I'd just like to point out that there is a manual on curves, and we may as well start here. It felt silly to do the work by simply copying this manual into a PowerPoint, so let's move straight into curves. So you guys will be familiar with the settings which we see in Zycon Colour Control. We'll go through them in order and step by step, and then we'll have a look at the practical application of changing those things. Okay. So the first slider we have is grey balance. Starting at 0, moving to 2. It's a kind of arbitrary scale. So what does it mean? It's both a UCR and a GCR tool. And what do we mean by that? We mean that in a grey area we're going to try to remove black and add even amounts of cyan, magenta and yellow, or vice versa. Removes evens amounts of cyan, magenta and yellow in neutrals and add black. But not only will we do that in the neutral colour space, but also in a coloured area where shading is being looked after by a tertiary colour. So for example, this was a discussion in an earlier session, if you think of a green apple, then you look at the colour separations in Photoshop, that green apple will be majority cyan and yellow, but there'll be a lot of magenta in there making the shading or modelling, and using this slider tool it will remove that magenta and replace by black. So we can have a look at this. It's in XXX Extremis. So where we're not requiring black at 0, you can see what the black channel looks like. And if we move to the other extreme, we're hardly using any cyan, magenta and yellow, and we're moving everything to the black. So what really stands out, I think, is this metal object in the middle when we look at it in the full colour separation. What's a good value to use? After 1, you get into the danger of causing too much noise in an image because it's too contrasty. So the break point is around 1. I would suggest that anything slightly lower than that is perfectly acceptable and will give you a great strong separation in black. It's a good thing to have, and we'll have a look at that in a while, but it helps stabilize very small drifts in the printing process. So first you have our curve. Next we have our TAC or TIL, and that stands for total area coverage. So the standard wisdom for many years in offset was to print around a 360 or a 330 total area coverage. And what do we mean by this? It's the darkest point possible in a scan. Obviously, theoretically, we can have 400. However, this is a slider, and we can go from 400 down to 100. This slider is only affecting highly saturated and dark parts of an image. So for midtones and light tones, this has very little effect. You can see here the two extremes. So if we go down to 100, it's impossible for us to make a process red because the maximum we can have there is 100. Whereas at 250, we can still have a process red, and we can still achieve a nice grey and saturated colours. So as a rule of thumb, anything between 250 to 270 is going to give you perfect reproduction, and we see that in the samples that we've made in the office. Anything above that, it's not really, although it does theoretically increase your gamut, because all you're doing is increasing some of the shadow possibilities, maybe some dark browns, which you're finding difficult to reproduce. But in general terms, there's no need to have it anything above 270. Now these two tools, the tack and till, and also the grey balance, are the tools which really are to be used in conjunction with each other if you're trying to do any sort of toner saving exercise. The more black we use, go on Lucas, go for it. Unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yes. What happened with the coffee? With the coffee, what to say? When they take a coffee, the coffee beans that is brown,
yeah.
And I have some customer that do it that way, and just wanted to know. You say that dark brown is not going to work so far so good.
Well, what you've got to think about is whatever cap. This is a cap, so the colours that you're trying to reproduce can't be made from more than that total. So it's been proven in offset again and again that you can actually get a full colour range out of 260, 270. But if you were saying in a situation where they're printing the coffee, but they want to really save on toner, and they're trying to do it at 220, then it's not going to do them so much good. So if you like, the break point in it makes no difference is 270. If you want something just to a bit of a rule of thumb. After 270, you will start to see smaller and smaller graduations in lack of quality. So detail starts to go, things start to fill in, and as you see here, this is the extreme model. Let's zoom in for you. So it's totally lost any credibility, where at 250 it's perfectly okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, but in terms of ISO coated is set up at 320. So when we try to match a offset press, that.
Sorry. Hello? Lost you? Lucas?
Yes, Bruce, you hear me?
I hear you now, yeah.
Okay, so, but no, I was wondering in terms of offset press versus ISO coated that they are working in 320. That normally all my life I do it in that way, that just with 320. I know that you can reduce it to 270, but my question is, in this case of very dark color like brown, coffee beans, and chocolates, what is the point here to reduce 270 versus a much proof that they are already using ISO coated in 220?
Well, we have a whole bunch of proofs which I'm sending out to all the service managers. All start with dark images, including there's some sort of coffee, well, they're nuts and berries, but brown images. It starts at 330. We felt there was no point going higher. Go 330, 300, 280, 260, 240, 220 and 200. And you can see when you look at the samples, 260 and 330 are identical in terms of quality, detail, colour. So the point of the slider is it's a way of controlling the amount of toner we put down. So it's a way of also in a kind of economics versus quality. You can keep turning that slider down and save more and more money, but you're going to start to lose. So if you're not on a click and you're paying for your toner, I would suggest it makes absolutely no difference to your customer if they print on 330 or 270. If they're playing on a click, it makes no difference anyway. But then you might have to ask yourself, am I getting some engineering type problem due to the toner thickness? Because the more we put down, the thicker the layers of toner are, which can lead, as you know, to cracking and other artifacts. So it really is a tool to kind of understand that it's always a choice, but the choice in terms of perfect quality, I said the break point is around 270. But that's... Hello? Lucas? Is everybody else still can hear? Can I have a check from? Yeah, okay, Lucas is... Okay, well, it's being recorded. He can step back in. Okay. So we have the grey balance, tack and till. Next we have black start. Okay, it's not a percentage, is the black. It's from white to black in L-star, and it's where we would like black to start at the smallest point. Now the reason for having this in a colour management system is that if we do wide format profiles, a lot of the older wide formats and a lot of the sort of lower resolution machines can't produce, don't really have a high enough resolution. And what can happen is, if we take a look at these two images, what we mean by black start. Hi Lucas. So if we look here in the separation of skin tone, we have magenta, yellow, and we have some black, and that's starting right at white. So whereas if we move the slider up to 60, oops, what's going on? We see that we remove the black and replace that by cyan. For our presses, we can start right at the beginning because we have high resolution. But the reason why you wouldn't want to have an early black start on, say, a wide format machine is that it can produce peppering effects. So that's the use of that tool. Again, the more black we use, the less colour we use, and it's also a way of reducing toner reduction. So we know for a fact we can reproduce a full black spectrum. And finally is the Max Black button. There would only under very special occasions would you ever want to reduce this to something else. So for example, if you were printing millions of telephone bills and you were trying to save on some ink, you could reduce this to 98% or 97%, and your text would get screened to that amount. So it's a way of forcing 100% black to be something else. I have to say, Lucas is a real trier. He's jumping in and out. So let's move to the software, and we'll have a play with those curves. Or I would if the internet had worked. So let's build a workflow. We'll call it curve 1. Select a printer. We'll select something's very strange. Really struggling online. Why? Sorry about this, guys. Seem to respond more helpfully. Okay. So we'll call this curve 1. So you're all familiar with this process. So let's just choose our default. So we're going to edit it. I don't want a Pantone table. Now remember, the render intent is just the default. And we're going to come on to our friend hybrid rendering later on. So let's step straight in here and have a look at what we should do. In fact, we'll leave this as our default, and then we can compare. So we'll have curve 2. Default disable. Okay. Okay. So let's move in and now edit this, the default. So we're going to add one. You base it on something. We'll call it training default. And I would straight away move this to 9.5. Like I said, this is right on the cusp, and you can do your own experiments. I wouldn't even consider 320. I'd go straight for this. I'd go straight for this. And save. So I have a workflow. This would be what I would consider a good default place to start. Whereas with this one, these default settings were predetermined based on the old software the R&D department used to use to create their profiles. So let's get those two profiles on the go. And I hope this is a nice reminder to you all. You can just use the same CGATS file to create many things. Okay, so while those are cooking, we're going to step in and start to look at device links next, and hybrids are going to be the last story. So, here's my So here's a PDF. What we have in this PDF are some typical graphic art artifacts that we might want to control using device links. So for example, if we take a look at this circle, It's set to overprint, so it's just on the black channel. You can see our blacks are all 100% blacks. If we have a look over here, we have a logo in CMYK, which we said is the wrong colour. And we may as well start off by discussing the reason for using device links at all. They have two functions in terms of editing a job. We can preserve certain colours, or we can edit certain colours, and we'll look at why we might want to do that. So here I have, hopefully, kind of Acrobat. So here we have our job as we see it in Photoshop, and we can use Photoshop to represent our RIP and what is happening in our RIP. So let's just go to the channels and make sure nothing's changed. So sure enough, this file represents the graphic arts file. So check CMYK 100, 100, 100, 100. Yes, everything's behaving itself. So as we know, in classic profiling, a conversion takes place. So you go from one colour space to another, and if I take a graphic arts profile and apply that, we suddenly find that our colours not only change, but we start to see different colours appearing in there. So we see we're getting a 1%, 2% of black. 100% cyan is now made up of several, we've got cyan, magenta, a bit of black in there, magentas, cyan, magenta and yellow. Yellow's a percentage, black is not maintained. See the black separation now. If I turn it off, you still see black all over the place. Now in terms of text, our RIP does look after keeping 100% text, but in terms of tints and other colours, then they will get transformed. And for some customers, they don't want this. And this is one of the reasons for using a device link. So we're going to look at how we can set certain colours to preserve. Okay. Okay, our two experiments for our curves are ready to download, so we'll take those now for use in a moment or two. But let's move on to our first look at device links. So we'll add a workflow, we'll call it preserve to make it easier to understand. When I select a curve now, I can actually select the one I just made, the training one. Still don't want any Pantones. So the first thing we have device link, if we turn this on, we have to have already a discussion with the customer about what his source profile is going to be. So let's choose ISO because it's probably going to be that, but it could be Grackle, or it could be one he's made himself. Okay. So this is what we want it to look like. Our rendering intent is locked into the profile. So regardless of what you choose in the RIP, it's what you choose here which counts. So it's probably going to be relative colorimetric. And what we're going to do is look at preserving some of the colours. So we press this little button and we first give our list a name. Preserve. And save it. So the first thing we're going to do is we want all our solids to be 100%. So no contamination. So cyan, 100%. And then press the little add button. Magenta, 100%. Yellow, 100%. Now, if you remember on the page, we had a couple of tint values. We had an orange and a green, and we don't want contamination happening on our green at the 75, and on the orange the same. So we're protecting these colours pixel by pixel from having any other colours being added to them. Now we can also do that for an entire channel. So if customers are, especially customers printing forms, often want to make sure if they've got black tints that they just see a black dot. So in that case we can totally preserve the black channel, and that's our edit. And save. And so we now see we have our output table is going to respect these settings. Our input table is going to be ISO coated, and we're going to have these edits happen on the job. So to get that going on its way, again using the same CGATS file for all these operations. And so while that's cooking, we'll have a look at the two files we made, curve 1, curve 2. Okay. These test files, by the way, I'm using are all downloadable from the XEC website. Okay. So let's take a grey balance. Ooh, take this one. Let's duplicate that. Fantastic. So to see the effect of your curves, we do a convert. So let's get things correct. We'll do the first one on the default, which we called curve 1. Okay. And let's have a look at the channels. And curve 2. So you can see straight away that on the slider, the default, which I think was set to 0.6, I'm moving it to just under 1, which is halfway. We're using a significant more amount of black. Now there's a good thing about this, and that's called stabilization. Which I think okay. So this image is a combined image. Oops. Sorry about this. And we can see on the right hand side we have a heavy black. On the left hand side we have a lighter, more conventional black. Now this helps Zycon or us, especially you guys in the field, when you're seeing drifts on the press. Now I really hope our press doesn't drift this much. But if it does, you see on the left hand side a big change, not just in the greys but also in the colour. And if I command Z that, so we're before, after, before, after. And the right hand side is much stabler. So the curves have another effect. Now it's interesting. You talk about Stelios, not Stelios. Lucas mentioned ISO-coated separations. Now the problem we have, or the difference we have to remain in our minds, is that when we create a CTP plate, or even if we create film and make a plate, that the linearization is analogued into the plate. And so having a light separation or a dark separation has very little consequence once it's on press. However, because our system has to constantly re-image every single time the linearization or the correct image, then it's bound to have some noise in there, some fluctuations. And so creating the separations in a different manner is more of a function of trying to get something correct for xerography, or as opposed, or any digital process where it's constantly being reproduced. Whereas on an analog process, those colours are linear on the plate. So it's another way of thinking if you're having to explain what you're doing with a customer. Okay, so that's the story on the curves, I think.
One question.
Yeah.
Just to understand, the difference from left to right with the black being and the right much higher, let's say.
Yeah.
Because of the colors that you put, not to change 100% values, or is it because of the profile?
It's the profile.
So if we don't do it through device link and we do it as an emulation, we have the same result?
Yes, they're totally independent conversations. So let's make sure this is clear, because it is a kind of logic. This is controlling your output table, Stelios.
Okay.
So that's the separations we're going to paint on the Zycon.
Because I got confused. The last part that you did was the device link.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the reason that we had this difference in black, but it is because of the curve and limits and stuff like that, right?
That was because of this conversation. So curve.
Okay, the first part.
So curve 1 is effectively these separations, and if I turn off black, you can see there's lots of cyan and magenta in there. And curve 2 are these separations. So that just now that will work if you use emulation. Or
in the same way, it's something completely irrelevant.
Yeah, basically what this is to show or try to illustrate is separations have nothing to do with colour.
Okay.
So I know these are not totally perfect, but the idea is these are identical. However, they're made from completely different recipes. And if you sort of an interesting factoid is if we take this colour, there are over 500 different recipes to make that exact same colour, which are all visually the same.
Visually meaning the LAB values, or
the
just...
LAB.
Okay.
So, so the first lesson is, I guess, you've got to get your separations correct to help you print on your Zycon, and show that if you are making them like the left hand side, then if your customer has got some not perfect calibration, he's going to see changes in the image very quickly. Whereas if he has it like on the right hand side, as we tried to show in this experiment, if I move the magenta, you can see the one on the right is very stable. And I can share this out images, you can share it and play with it yourself. So the next part of the story is, once we have a good set of separations, then maybe we'd like to do a device link so we can do some editing. And that's what I will show you now. Okay. Okay. So we created a device link. This device link has the output separations based on Curve 2, but if you remember, guys, it has those edits in where we've asked it to preserve some of the colours. So I'm going to download this now. And when you download a device link, you actually get two profiles. In session 6 we discussed how we loaded these into the X800, so we're not going to go through that today, but the one with the DL is your device link. This is just your standard output profile. So let's have a look at this in action. Indeed. Okay. So now I have my file. Let's check it. So this is the graphic arts file coming in. and what we're trying to do is stop some of those effects we see when we do a normal profile. So just to remind you, if I convert to a normal profile, and look at the black, turn the black off, I still find colours under all the black areas. I also find that my tints are not pure. If I look at my info, my tints, I've got some contamination in there. So going back to the original now. And we're going to use the device link, preserve. Okay. So if we check this out now, I asked these colours, these 75s, 75, to be preserved. So if we check so we see the tonal value has changed, which is normal, because what we're doing is we're still colour managing, so we're still trying to achieve the ISO coated, but there is no contamination from other colours. If I look at the solids, say 100%, 99, 100 and 99. If I look at, I ask the black channel to be preserved, so if I turn off the black channel, you see my blacks are being preserved. So if someone's got a black tint, then all they will see is a black without any other colours in there. Okay, so that's the first job of the device link. However, if we take a look at our picture of the young lady at the bottom, you'll see that we used Curve 2, which was our strong GCR. So if I look at the black channel, we're still using that strong GCR to create the images, and just preserving the areas which want something special to happen in. So that's one function of a device link, is that you can do these pre-edit tricks. The next function of a device link is to actually edit colours coming out of a profile. So this is often done when you've got maybe a difficult situation, such as a logo coming from a Word document. It's difficult to edit in any way at all, and if you try to change it through runtime gradation or anything, you have a real problem. It's also a really good tool for operators who don't have a pre-press any tools to edit, and like I say, if it's coming from a Microsoft Office document, it could be a real easy way of doing a simple edit which you then can apply every single time. So how do we do the edit? Okay. Again, we press the little edit button. And we go for edit colours this time. And now we're interested in the input values. So I just go back to see what those were. I wrote them on the screen to help me. The blue is 90 and 90, and the red has got some cyan in it. In fact, I think it's got black in it. Let's check. Is it cyan or is it black? Undo it. Yeah, it's actually black. Okay. So I want to edit the blue circle, which is an input of 100, 100. Let's remove them. And 15 black. Sorry, this was the red triangle, and I just want that to be process red. So this is my input table, this is my output table, and again it's pixel by pixel editing. Next we had the blue circle, and I want that to be a much more royal blue. Okay. Now to create the table we have to make the profile, so we close this down. You notice it says not calculated. We must recreate that profile so it can create that table, and I don't want to apply it there. So we want to apply it here. We'll call this the edit. Training 2, let's just check. There are originals. The one thing I did notice was the yellow and the cyan were not going to 100% as well. So we can force that. So input cyan 100, output cyan 100, input cyan yellow as 100, output yellow as 100. And we can download the profile directly from here. Which one? So let's replace that. And now check this is our original artwork. It is. So this is the original. And now we're going to apply the new device link, which not only has the preserves but also the edits. And if it's worked, yeah, indeed. So this was 90/90, this was 100 115, and now we have 100 115 in the blue and 100 100. Okay. And our edits are still working. And let's see if now we've got solids. 100, 100, 100, 100. That's a story regarding device links. We can have RGB to CMYK, CMYK to CMYK, possibly in the future CMYK to 5-color as well. That's something which will be a future development. So are there any questions on device links before we move on to hybrids? And can you see where you would use them? No? Okay, correct. So the next thing we're going to look at is hybrid profiling. Quite a difficult conversation simply because nobody else has this tool. It's a unique tool for us. And something I think could really help in the field. Well, one last thing regarding device links. There is a manual. It's a CMI manual, but it's available to us internally. Also, we have a swatch book we can use in the pre-press, which can be helpful when doing those device link edits. An old-fashioned way of working, I know, but if a guy has no other choice than to work this way, a low-skilled operator, I think, will find this an easier way than working with LAB. Okay. So, story on hybrid rendering started when we were started to discuss G7, and the concept behind G7 is that a grey balance, a neutral grey, is more preferable and something which can be checked and tried to achieve than trying to mess around in any other sort of form. Now, when you've just got 4 colours and 4 plates, this is true. However, when we're working in the world of ICC profiles, we're working colorimetrically. We're not working in CMYK, we're working in lab to CMYK. So we have this idea, we have a theoretical grey. We have a theoretical grey, but with the addition of paper, we will get a cast within that grey. Now, when we have in the past, in the profiling world, we've had the ability to either print absolute, so we see this cast, or there's a concept of relative colorimetric, which simply removes the colour and minuses it from the rest of the colours in the profile. And that methodology has been used for years and years. However, it's not, when you analyse it, giving sometimes the best possible results. So we had to come up with a way of thinking about how do we achieve a grey on the paper, perfect grey. So we have 2 challenges. One is we have the cast caused by the output source profile. Now, even if that is RGB, there's no cast in the output profile, but sure enough, we have the cast caused by the paper profile. So, sorry, I got myself tongue-tied there. We have a cast caused by the source, if it's a press profile. And we also have the challenge of the cast caused by the paper and optical brightness. So the concept of a hybrid profile is that these 2 features could be calculated out of the profile. No other company is doing this at the moment. And what it's doing is it's making that compensation, and it's hard coding that compensation into the output table of the profile. Now, it gives a total neutral appearance. The other thing it does is, because of this way of rendering from the whole L-star, that we also have a kind of inbuilt black point compensation, which means that regardless of rendering intent, you will see a full dynamic range. Now, although the method we use is totally unique, the result is a G7 appearance. Now, that's great for the pre-press sort of commercial printers, but where it really kicks in and makes does something quite amazing, which we'll look at in a moment, is in photo books, wallpapers, anybody using a RGB workflow. The reproduction is quite something else. Now, like with a device link, it's output dependent, so you've got to know what you're going to do. So let's go to the let's make one, and let's start this operation. So we'll make a new one. We'll call it hybrid. Now we're going to make one for an sRGB workflow, and we'll also make one for a ISO workflow. Okay. So, like with a device link, you have to know what your workflow is going to be. And we can edit, we have some little edits as well. So the blend is the smoothness of moving from the paper colour in the highlights into a neutral zone. I would just leave that on default. We can actually play with brightness and contrast as well. Let's make it slightly more bright. Let's go for a 0.5 and a little bit more contrast. And I just want to check that against the setting I did earlier on. Yeah, just gave a real good result. And now I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to do a hybrid ISO. So because I'm back to my 4-color workflow, I'm going to use my 260 curve. Don't want a Pantone table, relative, and here's my ISO coated. I'm not going to do any edits and keep it as pure as possible. Okay. And also with this profile, I can still have then a device link, including all my edits. So all the great things I've just mentioned about hybrid, we can have that paint onto the paper through a device link workflow. Let's just cancel it for now.
You changed the rendering?
Where?
I see it now it's relative colorimetric, and the other one was absolute, isn't it?
Which one, sorry?
The one you made before.
This one?
The photo optimized, yeah? This perceptible rendering, and that one is another one, isn't it?
Yeah, this is for a
oh yeah, I see it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But by the way, guys, this rendering thing, it's a default rendering. All the other tables are still in there. And in fact, when you build a hybrid, it only has one kind of table. Okay. So we'll go away and we'll go build these. Still using the same file. So from one set of measurements, you can do all these edits and changes for a customer. Okay, so while that's doing that, I'll just point out a couple of new features. If you turn on your spot color library now, guys, and go to download, you will see spot color report. Takes a little time to load because there's and for every Pantone in your library, it will give you the possible delta E of that Pantone with that profile, and that includes any of your special colours which you've added. And if you notice, you can have that the colours given to you as a percentage or as in our 8-bit format. And if you've got a 5-colour job, sorry, a 5-colour wide gamut output, come on. So for every Pantone, you get the 2 possibilities, which is best to use. Okay. So let's start off and investigate RGB. So here we have a RGB file. If we look at how we actually process that, generally speaking, with our workflow, we would normally have that to perceptual. We would normally have that to a Zycom profile. Or one we've made ourselves. So first thing to point out is the use of the black point compensation button we see in the RIP, and we can see how that's working. However, sometimes we work in an emulation workflow which is actually always relative, and we may find that if we have an RGB we start to see this kind of effect. If I load in the hybrid I made this morning, we get a perfect rendition of the job. All details are kept. We don't need to use black point compensation, and it's a really and we can work in a both a direct and a emulation workflow with no compromise. So it's a really super tool for so if I asked it to be a little bit brighter, sure enough it's adds a little bit more punch to the image, as opposed to if we look at say a graphic arts profile, potentially removes and lightens. So it's a nice tool. It has to be used correctly, but can really help, especially in this sRGB workflow. So neutrals are perfectly neutral. Keep all the details, all the shadow details. A real strong tool, and so you've got to predetermine what you're trying to do, but you can use it, as I say, in a make an ISO. So if you have a 4-color workflow, let's just open a 4-color file. So normally in a graphic arts workflow we'd have a graphic arts profile. Notice how we fill in if we don't use the black point compensation in the RIP. But if we move to the hybrid, we still maintain all details, be it on or off. Super powerful tool. Okay. Any questions guys?
Generally okay.
Thank you.
For me also.
Yeah, for me also. I'm wondering how you can implement it at the customer side. It's not that easy. You have to recognize the right examples to do this.
Yeah. No, it's
And
not.
they first have to have color control to all make this happen by custom, isn't it?
Yeah. Of course.
I understand this. Yeah, it's very nice to see.
Well, the thing to remember is there's a big trial button. I'll happily work with you guys to train the customer online through TMAC, WebEx. Making a proof of concept is very simple, doesn't cost other than time. But if you have customers complaining about things, especially difficult images, and if they're in the business of doing wallpapers or photo books or this kind of thing, this tool can really, really help.
Yeah. I have a few customers who are doing wallpaper and also photo books, but they make that before in pre-press. They convert them to CMYK.
Yeah. So they're making a. They don't need to.
No.
Okay. Great stuff. Thank you.
One question, Bruce. I'm missing the training 6. Is that correct? You didn't record that one.
Training 6 is like one of the lost albums of the Beatles.
I know.
It's not been recorded yet.
But do you have the PowerPoint presentation for me? Maybe that's I can also read that through.
It's going to be, because it's barely just installing and setting everything up. It's a live presentation. The reason why it failed was I have only Parallels on my Mac to run the X800, and trying to run the WebEx and the X800 and everything in one go just was a disaster. So I need to just be able to talk and with myself with no WebEx and just do it by myself. But it will be done.
Okay, but you didn't use a PowerPoint presentation for that?
Not at all. It's a purely practical.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
Step by step.
Bruce, what I would like to have is the presentation of you on session 5, how to explain how is the RIP is using the RGB and CMYK.
Yeah.
That presentation was quite nice to have to teach here to the operators.
Yeah, that's. Did you not get the email with all the links? I'll resend you.
I had the email, but I don't check the Dropbox. Rafael do it, and it said it's only one presentation. That's why.
Okay.
You upload everything now.
No, what it is, the link is to a folder. I'll show you how it's set, but it's also going on stream on the support site bit by bit. But if I show you my Dropbox config list, these are the links, so that you'll only see one thing, and inside number 5, for example, you will get the the movie, the presentation, any supporting documents I talked about. So for example, today I made all the profiles. You can drop these into Photoshop and play. I did the device link PDF file for you all to play with. Oh, this is something about device links as well.
Okay, I don't look at. Bruce, just one more question. I don't see very well how you make that report for spot colors. I don't know if you have time just to
Yeah,
review, because I was in the traffic, and that's why I coming and going.
Okay, let's go over the spot colours. This is a new feature which is not 100% finished. So the first thing to know is when we make a profile with a spot colour library being asked for, when we download, if I press, let me just empty my downloads. So when I download this today, this is a 5-coloured wide gamut. I get a 4-colour profile, the 5-colour profile, and the 5-colour spot colour library. So that's the 5-colour library, that's the 4-colour library. What it also does is generate a report takes a while. There's 140 some pages it's generating.
Just quick question, Bruce. Where is the folder for the presentations? In Dropbox? Because I can't see it.
No, I made just links to the folders. Tell you what I'm going to do. Well, I'm going to keep recording because this is of interest to everybody. But I'll make sure I send you those links in a second.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so you get a report, and the report is, if it's a five colour, for every Pantone you get the separation breakdown and the potential delta E. Okay.
What is the dot gain we need to use there? Is the saying 50%, or it should be 100?
So when you think of named colours, and especially 100% named colours, dot gain has absolutely no effect.
Yeah, but it's saying magenta 9 there.
Sorry?
It said magenta 9. So that's why I'm asking what is the dot gain that this should be used.
No, it's been calculated based on the way you make the profile.
It's from the color table directly. It doesn't go through the tone curve.
Yeah, and the calculation, so if you make a profile with 0 dot gain, your workflow should be 0 dot gain, and these values will be whatever they are here. If you make the IT8 chart with dot gain, then these values would be lower, would they?
Yes.
Yes. So it's all to do with the correct process of making the profile, the dot gain, and the table are all interactive. But once you've created them, the dot gain doesn't matter.
Okay, so when we put the profile and we put this Pantone book, we need to put the dot gain at none. That's what you mean.
Well, let me put it this way. Let's say you've got a workflow or jobs which are only named colours. Yeah. So there's never any RGB, never any CMYK. It's just named colours. All you need is this table in your RIP. You never need to actually put the profile in. Your profile is doing nothing with those named colours.
But I think
Okay.
the answer is that we use the same dot gain that we use when we are printing the test chart.
The IT8 chart.
Yeah.
But that then is a discussion for, okay, a workflow is never going to be all named colours. It's going to have some other things in there, and therefore I need to use my profile. And that's why you would use the profile with however the output is. You have to see the dot gain almost as part of the engine and not the pre-press.
Yeah, in a way, in fact, the dot gain that we use is not in the RIP section, it's in the preprint section. So in a way, it is quite after the color management that we do.
It is indeed, yeah. You almost got to see it as a printer characteristic. So if you are if your customer is never printing, and the only impact it has if you go to color management is for spot color tints. If you have it at 0, 50 will be 50% of a spot color tint. But if you make it at 0, your profile, and then have a CMYK workflow, ISO to output, or RGB to output, then that dot gain, as long as it's left at 0, your output will be great. And in fact, that's the correct way of working. But dot gain is such a embedded thing at Zycon, it's a difficult discussion. Okay, so we see our chart. Does it make it clear what it's trying to show you? This is the best that profile will probably do. So you can find the warnings. You can make an Excel sheet of this. So that's the first new tool. The next new tool regarding spot colors, and the button to make this happen is coming. So we have our normal custom color table, but let's say we have a job come in and we want to see which is okay. You can add an exception color. Stack the famous Pantone. And we can edit that. So that's the reference. And we can see which workflow will be able to produce that. Take some time to calculate.
Bruce, hybrid is help to make better spot colors with that drift cast that you talk about the paper, or it's not, just it's more for photo book?
No, that's for 4-colour printing and for photo books. But for spot colours, it's a totally different story, really. It's about how super accurate we can find the correct separation value. So you can see here, if we use no surprise, if we use a Zycon orange in the with the job, we have a delta E, still not perfect, of 0.7, but in 4-colour we're at 7. So it's a way of calculating this. You can edit it to try to help yourself. But you can see when we're using 5 colours, it's actually searching through both profiles. It's a kind of a little bit slow, so there's quite a bit of edits to do with this, but it's certainly a tool which we'll be talking and doing some more training on, but it's not quite finished. But it's there for you guys to have a play with at least. Okay, I'm going to close this down. It's been because I've been talking for 2 hours now. Thank you. If there's no more time.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
Bye bye.